My name is Snigdha, and I'm the research lead at Bitly, and I'm here to talk about a 30, 60, 90-day plan for having impact with your new or existing research function as a team of one. So I'm currently the research lead at Bitly. I created the practice there. Before this, I was one of the researchers in the team at FactSet, and I actually learned a lot about what it takes to build a research practice from the ground up there because I was the first researcher in the team. Before all of this, I was doing my PhD in cognitive neuroscience. It actually took many, many years, and I learned a lot about what some of the parallels are between being a PhD researcher and also being a team of one. Consider this scenario. You're one of these musicians and you're performing a recital and there's no one in the audience. You're performing to an empty room. So think about your experience as a research team of one. Early on, you might have actually very little reception and it might be difficult to prove yourself and have impact. But as you create those effective partnerships and build trust, it takes a lot of time and effort, but you should see results from that. Over here, you see a photo of some of my colleagues and I across design, product, and customer success doing an ideation session together. This is where the magic happens as a research team of one. When you're working together with your colleagues to co-create experiences based on customer needs or user needs that you learn about through your research, that's the greatest impact you can have. You're forming effective partnerships, and that's going to mean more impact for your research than doing it alone. So some of the things I'm going to talk about today is some successes and learning opportunities I had early on as a research team of one. I'll emphasize in the first 30 days, listening and engaging to your partners and to your leadership to understand what kind of research could have impact at your organization. In 60 days, I'll talk about scoring some quick wins, and in 90 days, establishing repeatable processes that can help you scale your practice. And beyond that, creating a vision that is going to help communicate why you're doing the research you do and the value it provides to your company. So the first 30 days, listening and engaging. In this stage, I emphasize doing some listening tours and not jumping into doing research too quickly. So listen to your leadership and partners and what they have to say, some of their misperceptions around research, around it taking too long, or maybe not. Maybe they already think they know their users. That's something I actually heard very frequently in my last company because some of the people I work with used to work in finance and we were building products for users in finance. But once we did some field research together and we observed some of the contexts that our users are working in every day and their needs, it became really clear to us there's a lot that we didn't know. Capture these misperceptions early on, and it'll help you create a research plan around it and how you can immerse your colleagues. Also, see the long game. It's not going to be immediate for you to make impact, so some things may take a while. Identify quick wins or things you can do that'll take less impact, but you may actually have a lot of result early on. And know that plans may change. So speaking of plans, who here is guilty of writing a PhD level thesis about all the research that you plan to do and nobody ends up reading it? So that actually happened to me. I wrote this plan about all of the research we were going to do, but we actually ended up implementing a lot of it, but it didn't happen in the order that I expected or at the pace that I expected. So it could be helpful to yourself as a new researcher to scope out different priorities and opportunities, but just know that plans will change. Another thing to stay away from when doing research as a team of one and you're first getting started, don't push for research that's a low business priority because it's actually going to be frustrating and you're not going to score quick wins with that. So you need to understand and spend the due diligence and time to understand the problem space. Maybe you're in a new industry. So give yourself that time to understand the area that you're working in and what matters to your organization and how people are measured on success. And that will help you frame your research questions around that. Keep in mind it's a long game. So early on, as you can see in this little diagram, you may think that there's a lot of research you can do, but later on you might see low traction with some of your efforts and you may have to pivot your strategy. But you should see some roots gaining hold eventually for your research. And finally, you might actually build some cross-functional partnerships so that your research goes beyond just the product or design, but actually impacts other areas of your organization. So some questions to check off and understand through your listening tours are: what matters most to your colleagues and your collaborators? What matters to your leadership? Who are your advocates and who are the skeptics? And what's the comfort zones of these people? Can you do some research that would actually be in their comfort zone and maybe prove some quick impact? And what are some of the gaps in understanding you can fill with your work? And what are some of the top 3 opportunities for partnership right now? And how can you plan research that will take others along for the ride? So taking others along for the ride is going to be key, and I'm going to talk more about that. But in the first 60 days, you're going to want to score some quick wins. So you might create a prioritization matrix and assess opportunities and take on only high priority efforts. And find opportunities to immerse teams in the research, because that's really going to pay off. If you don't do this, you're doing a disservice to yourself and the company, because the only way you're going to have impact is if others are taking along for the ride and they see the value and the insights for themselves and through the lens of their own perspective. In the 60 days, you might have this prioritization matrix you create. In the upper right is the zone for quick wins. So you should have many opportunities in this area as a UXR team of 1. So that's exciting, woohoo! But so you need to slow down and probably understand that a lot of those opportunities might not be the right ones to take on right away. Which are the ones that are the most important based on the business priorities? And also, how hard are they to implement? So you have to consider logistically or tactically, how much time and effort and resources is this going to take? And the zone of futility in the lower left is basically efforts that take too much time, too much resource, and they may not be high business priority. So some examples here. Maybe a zone for quick wins item could be to understand why some of your users are canceling their subscription by sending out a quick survey in product or email, if you already have some mechanisms in place to do that. Other areas for quick wins could be doing a baseline usability test of your product. That could actually have a long shelf life for the insights, because you could end up acting on them later on as well, as your strategy shifts in your company. And the zone of futility is perhaps doing iterative usability testing on a feature or a workflow that is not priority for the business right now to investigate. That could have very low impact. Some of the things not to do: don't take on everything as a research team of 1. You aren't doing your job, as I mentioned. You're not doing your job if you're trying to do it solo. So make sure you're taking other people along for the ride, starting from creating the interview guides, scoping out the research, all the way through doing co-analysis and presenting on the insights. I'm going to show you an example of this. So this is on the right, an ideation board created by a team that I partnered with. This informed our next steps and our tickets and our sprints that we were working on. And so how this came about was that the team I worked with involved product, engineering, design, cross-functional teams. We actually worked on the research plan together, and we wanted to understand some key segments that our business was focused on and their needs. We wrote the interview guides. We did the interviews together and did co-analysis on the insights. And we co-presented the findings. So what ended up happening was the head of product on that team, she ended up actually presenting the strategy. The lead engineer presented some of the technical considerations. The designer talked about some of the competitor products that she scoped out. And I talked about some of the research insights. And we all together did an ideation exercise using how might we statements on key user needs we observed in the research. And we tried to solve for them in this ideation activity. So don't just deliver, partner, and don't try to do it all yourself, because if you do, it's probably not going to be effective. You need the perspectives of all of your teammates to come along for the research. So just to sum this section up, here's an opportunity checklist. So for the value to the business, you can understand that by asking your stakeholders, your partners, how will the insight from this research be used? How does it align with the business objectives? And what other efforts is this going to impact? And to assess ease of effort, which is along the x-axis, you will see what resources you might need, what the timeline is, what the dependencies are, and who your partners are. Are they advocates? Are they still on the fence about research? Now I'll go on to the next stage, 90 days. So this is all about establishing repeatable processes. You likely by this time have scored a couple of quick wins at least, and you're ready to scale. So why do this? Why try to scale? You likely don't have a lot of time to do actual research, so it's important for you to offload some of these tasks that can be automated or can be streamlined. So recruitment is a big time sink for a lot of researchers. When you're working in B2B contexts, you actually might have a lot of unique difficulties with recruitment because you're looking at recruiting your own customers, and they're very busy professionals and they may not have time, and you have to compensate them very competitively for doing research. So you would want to automate recruitment by creating a research panel. I'll get into that in a moment. And you'll also want to use some tools like Calendly to schedule your research sessions. You want to empower others to do research, templatize everything like your interview guides. But don't lose sight of the big picture here. So the big picture is what's happening with the business, what are the product teams working on, how to stay connected with them and keep a pulse on those things is going to be important. So automating recruitment, let's get into the nitty-gritty details on that. So if you want to create a customer panel, try to figure out all the different channels with which your business is communicating with your customers already or with your users, and try to piggyback or create communications around those channels. So what I did was early on, I spoke with marketing, customer success, and other teams, and I figured out which email and other communications were going out, and we created messaging around the research efforts and made sure that they were sort of going out in an automated manner along with the other messaging that was being sent out already through these channels. And I was able to determine the effectiveness of these channels with how many people were clicking on the links and signing up for the research through my screener survey. And this process actually gave us very early on several hundred people in our user research panel, which was essential. And your role as a team of one is not only to do these processes by yourself, but to empower others. So create resources for team members to use and assume roles. So how to take good notes, for example, how to moderate sessions, how to live stream sessions for other people to watch, and how to code interviews. I worked on this with multiple teams across our company, and we've been working together on using these processes. And create a checklist perhaps for yourself. Maybe there might be different things you might want to work on, like creating moderators guides for different methods, survey templates for different purposes, tools for co-analysis. I use Miro and Trello for that. So leverage some different tools to create some processes for yourself in this phase. What happens beyond all of this? Now you have a rock solid foundation for your research practice, but how can you communicate a vision to the rest of your company and help bring everybody on the same page? Questions to ask yourself. What is the role of research in your organization? How have research efforts shaped outcomes? Are there opportunities for research to inform other teams across the organization? And how will we measure success? And how will we move key results with our research? So just to show you, I have this diagram here, which was created in collaboration with my colleague. And our mission was empowering our teams to make decisions based on a shared understanding of our users. And as we noticed, as our research practice matured, we were not only interfacing with engineering, product, and design, but we were actually interfacing a lot and collaborating with marketing, for example, with go-to-market strategy and writing value propositions based on research. And we were working with customer success, for example. So as your research function matures, you'll have a lot of feedback loops that might be stronger with other areas of the business. So that's kind of what's indicated by this diagram and what we encountered. And I just wanted to end with a funny, a moral of the story as a user research team of one is to try and try again. So you might have a lot of early skepticism. So these are pictures from the children's storybook, Green Eggs and Ham. And you can see here that the person on the right side is not very interested in green eggs and ham. And through trying and trying again and repeated exposure and new opportunities, he or she saw the value in exploring the new territory. So I would say that it's important for you as a research team of one to know that sometimes it can take many tries and to not feel like you need to give up or that it's taking too long, because it's sometimes a windy road, but your effective partnerships are being built along the way and you will get there. So some final remarks. What are your biggest challenges today? I wanted to ask you some questions to this audience here, everyone who's listening to this talk. What are your challenges today as a user research team of one? How do you cope with these challenges and how do you prevent burnout? It can be pretty isolating to be a research team of one. So I wanted to put those questions out there and maybe learn a little bit from you. And thank you so much for listening to this talk. I want to thank my cross-functional team partners, without whom our research practice would not have been a success, and my research friends and community who have helped guide me when I don't really have other researchers to lean on in my company who are trained researchers. So it's really helpful to have this community here. And also I took a course with Tracy Lovejoy, so she informed a lot of my perspectives around being a change agent and concepts like doing listening tours. So I just wanted to thank her as well. And thank all of you so much. And I hope to speak with you in the Slack channel for this presentation and talk more about being a research team of one. Thanks. Bye.